From early skeuomorphic textures to frosted glass cards, and now to liquid glass. Ultimately, the core goal is to create a UI that floats without obscuring the screen, thus enabling a full-screen software experience. So frosted glass gives way to clear glass, and what is needed is a material that is fluid and great for boosting touch feedback, namely liquid, which led to defining the liquid glass material. Based on this principle, for the 4 Android UIs we analyzed last time that use light effects to boost touch feedback, I would say they only scratched the surface. Its system-wide reach is merely theming level. Until HarmonyOS shipped, Immersive Light Sensation had only launched 3 months prior. This video script had just wrapped up right before Chinese New Year, only to face another update. Got the Mate 80 and the Pro X Max 2. This is now who knows how many times I have rewritten this script. Experienced many versions. In my view, compared to HarmonyOS's own initial immersive light sensation, it has gotten close to iOS while shedding most of its own unique traits. This video might run long, the content dense. It is all about nitty-gritty details. For this one, I just spoke freely. I honestly could not care less about watch completion rates. Thanks for watching this full breakdown. I am 3Onion. Drop some coins to help this creator recover. iOS 26's liquid glass material has 2 key traits. It mimics the refractive lens effect of liquids at its edges to create a sense of spatial depth, and it renders ambient lighting, edge highlights distinguishing the background. Unlike frosted glass, which scatters the background image entirely, liquid glass aims for clarity, letting menus hover over the page while still letting you see what is beneath. Due to this clear yet complex pursuit, the earliest beta aimed for ultimate clarity via a light blur, but the result was the glass blending into the background, making readability a total mess. Now, they have wised up and compromised by strongly dimming the center via the background to set it apart from the brightened backdrop. The floating menu's base frame also needs a constant faint white hue with a white gradient added at the bottom now, and then to ensure content on the glass displays properly. The trade-off is that the background looks hazy and less clear. Mostly only in dark mode can you feel that stronger sense of transparency in the menu bar's glass. HarmonyOS 6's refraction warp, its glass effect shares core traits with liquid glass. When you scroll, you see colors warp and flow along those curved edges. Border edge areas can preview content, and edge highlights use true bright color picks. Unlike Android, HarmonyOS did not ponder or implement solutions for these core features' power consumption. For 9020 and up, enable strong light sensing, rest assured, all visible new materials sport their full powered effects. But upon closer comparison to iOS, HarmonyOS still shows quite a few differences in the details, starting with the blur levels of its various floating menus, which are far greater than iOS's. iOS actually stacks a semi-transparent blur atop the original screen, which lets content bleed out slightly without hampering main object recognition. This quest for sheer clarity exists only in the floating bars at the app's base. Other things, like notification submenus, are all standard and blurry, which aligns with iOS's idea of floating overlays, not obscuring the screen. HarmonyOS is uniform and blurry system-wide, lacking iOS's knack for tailoring to different scenarios. The same goes for its refraction and distortion effects. As the page scrolls up, the reflection at the top gradually expands, widening to meld with the actual view. Yet with HarmonyOS, that width as it blends does not expand much from the edges inward. You can see clearly that HarmonyOS's refracted area is markedly smaller than iOS's, just that thin band around the edges, which has its pros and cons. For small glass elements like desktop folders, that wide distortion zone blending with the background can easily make colors look muddled. But in the control center, HarmonyOS and iOS flip roles, iOS dials back the distortion strength and scope for these full-screen glass scenes. The edge distortion is super subtle, but HarmonyOS just slaps on the same parameters. Even from this bug, it seems the distorted area and intensity are even greater than the floating bar. The round button can readily warp the colors beneath it up to its top, crafting a liquid water drop feel that is quite strong and stunning. But once the background gets complex, that full-screen glass look feels a tad greasy. You could say it shows a lack of thought for scene specifics, or, well, you could call it visual consistency. Back to that floating menu bar, note that HarmonyOS's warped area also has a bit of horizontal stretching, giving it a feel of distorting outwards gradually, whereas OS has a flush reflection. And what is interesting is, for those large sidebars on macOS and iPadOS, their refraction of elements below shares that same magnifying distortion as HarmonyOS. One might suspect the liquid glass here is the true full-powered version. Another HarmonyOS trait, its refraction zone strongly mirrors nearby colors. Even when the image is some ways off from the glass's edge starts casting highlights in that matching color, a trait both HarmonyOS and iOS share. But on HarmonyOS, colors show up well in advance, even when the glass is far from the colorful backdrop. In contrast, iOS has a much greater fronting distance, plus, iOS's lighting only hits the edge highlights, whereas HarmonyOS's lighting extends inward into the distortion layer. You can think of this as pulling the screen's imagery from all around toward the glass by a set distance, giving that area a sort of reverse foresight. It renders distant imagery, mimicking the background's strong, diffuse light reflecting off the glass, a glow layer, as I call it. In contrast, iOS's lighting effects stand out more when you swipe. But right now, HarmonyOS's algorithm for showing that glow layer has some minor issues, something you all likely noticed during the Mate 80 demo earlier. When the light shines in from the edges, the colors look like they have a low sampling rate. There are always speckled, uneven patches of light, and the color edge blending feels quite unnatural, too. In most cases, you can spot color banding along the capsule's edges, which look like striped sections. Worst of all, when the glow layer maps content moving sideways, it totally gives itself away. Those edge colors switch out square by square. You can see this in the top search bars of system apps. It is just a horrid sight. Mainly for glass that overlays background color boundaries, you can spot issues to some degree. In contrast, iOS shows no such flaws. The vast glass surfaces on Macs and iPads also heighten reflections of nearby colors, but in a rather natural, soft way. Clearly, the HarmonyOS team has spotted this rather serious issue. I only found out after I bought my Pro X Max, or perhaps the e-commerce version has already been optimized. It is like adding a blur layer atop the glow layer. Before, the source direction was clear-cut. Now, the glow has turned into a faint color and can shine straight onto the capsule's top from the same distance. The jagged edges where color zones meet are unseen, but the low sampling rate means the flickering upon horizontal swiping has not changed. Those sharp boundaries will still flicker as they always did. Take a close look in the old version. The flickering at the color boundaries got blurry and even caused the entire reflection layer to flicker. Plus, its strong light sensing quality was toned down too. So it only temporarily fixed the color seam issue, so it does not look quite as bad. In fact, upon closer look, that color seaming issue in the slender notification bars within rounded corners still persists, meaning the algorithm truly needs more tweaking. What I did not expect was that HarmonyOS's floating bottom bar, with its slight blur, would show flickering artifacts as the page scrolls slowly. Instead, switching to balance mode removes pure light distortion. Blur increases, flicker, and jagged edges disappear. But these complex effects still need optimization. The immersive light cap toggle differs most at the pupil's center. On strong light blocking, background blur reduces. Button becomes translucent. HarmonyOS 2 relies on a dimming level akin to iOS to set itself apart from the backdrop. But whereas the button in Office is brighter and more prominent, HarmonyOS blends a bit too much with its background. Luckily, HarmonyOS has greater edge warping. Its outer color rings warp and its edge highlights brighten, which also sets it apart well from the background. And for in-app floating bars, as I touched on earlier, iOS in light mode needs to add a white backdrop or emit white light from the bottom to maintain the readability of its black icons. This is because iOS refrains from swapping the main icon colors, unless it absolutely has to. Light mode means it defaults to black icons atop a fixed white-backed glass layer, and if the bottom area is bright, it adds a white gradient glow on top. PSK. This makes the glass look rather whitish, and far from clear enough. In contrast, HarmonyOS in light mode feels more like glass than does iOS. Even with a blurrier bottom than iOS, HarmonyOS proactively swaps its base blue theme color. Bright background, it swaps to black icons. Tap the content, it swaps to white icons, while the glass backdrop stays slightly dimmed. The downside though is that when you swipe, the content shifts affect the icon colors, which keep toggling back and forth. On this point, I think it is no big deal really. But a dream of Red Mansion's God knows which version went bonkers and added a permanent glow at the bottom too, with high white opacity and a massive spread. Dark mode means the gradient at the bottom fades to dark. And the dumbest part is this. Right now, HarmonyOS only swaps between white and black glows in its Photos app based on the background. Elsewhere, it just sticks to one fixed color based on light or dark mode. Once you land on a dark screen in light mode, a baffling white glow at the bottom, can you even stand that? Not like iOS, which switches adaptively in any scenario. At least most of the time, it offers a clear full screen view, and even the white light radiating from the bottom looks quite soft. HarmonyOS has severe whitening at the bottom, which clashes starkly with that clear, clean glass look. Or slap on a menu bar that sits in just one small spot. Yet the entire bottom gets this huge patch of white glow. Meant to make the display area full screen and immersive, yet they create such a stark divide. So ugly, truly. Wait, hold on. HarmonyOS 7 switched some top menu sections bottom borders back. Does not that go against several concepts iOS 16 put forth earlier? The page lacks that clean, seamless feel, and they just slap 2 glass layers on top. Do you guys think rivals will scurry back and copy that move? Okay, let us keep going. Switching to dark mode makes things look a bit better, and the look for both iOS and HarmonyOS is quite similar. Both favor white icons plus dimmed glass, and HarmonyOS will not swap theme colors lightly either. But iOS still shows slight shifts, where the glass turns whitish based on content and dims at the bottom. Yet in dark mode, iOS's white icons and text support a clear perspective effect, which feels more premium than HarmonyOS's plain, solid color icons, still a unique highlight of its material design. Regarding button edge highlights, as I said earlier, both HarmonyOS and iOS use actual color brightening, just with differing styles. Their highlights are spotlights that hit diagonally across from each other. On the lock screen and home screen, you can rotate your phone to change the light's angle, but highlights always remain in small diagonal areas. In other scenes, highlights are fixed to the top left and bottom right corners. Last time, most Android UIs reviewed sported this fixed angle too. Meanwhile, HarmonyOS's fixed highlight shines vertically from top to bottom, yielding a highlight rim that is strong at the top and fades at the bottom. Oh wait, in the latest iOS 17 beta, the highlight direction has also shifted to top down, and only the lock screen remains rotatable, while all other scenes now have fixed top and bottom highlights. Okay, let us carry on, but HarmonyOS seems to have deliberately cranked up the edge highlight scope quite a bit. Within the system, for most scenes, the button cards look as if the highlight completely encircles the entire button. Not like a highlight from a material reflection, but rather an outline around the button. In fact, the highlight does fade out toward the mid-lower part, but then links right back up with the part below it. The highlight seems to lack a clear direction. In fact, for many card-like areas, HarmonyOS's way of showing light is to add a full, solid highlight ring, which does not look as glossy as iOS's. HarmonyOS's control center card buttons only highlight the top and bottom areas. But on the music card, currently exclusive to PureX Max, why is there this fake highlight made with a white outline that looks so out of place with the system? Lastly, on materials. A side note, if I recall correctly, iOS removed the control center's background depth effect, right? When Liquid Glass launched. I never quite grasped this change until HarmonyOS 2 dialed down its control center's blur and filled in the extra edges from shrinking the background. All vendors have long used reverse stitching for the edge imagery. Priorly, with high blur, any flaws were only visible when pulling down the panel. Once blur was toned down, things got awful in many scenarios. If you are not careful, how come this official theme's edge pulls up a black border? HarmonyOS shows 2 small bars when swiping down. iOS has this same issue when swiping right in Notification Center to get to the -1 screen. So my guess is that for iOS, since that syncing motion causes background fill issues that mess with the look, they just went and nixed that lower part entirely. HarmonyOS and iOS each have their own trade-offs. Which one do you all prefer? For the upgraded iOS 16, you might, like me, not be too fond of how Liquid Glass covers up that clutter caused by distortion over complex visuals. But you have to admire the top-tier enjoyment that Liquid Glass brings to dynamic interaction. To sum up, the sense of interaction feedback. Fluid, seamless links between elements. Last time, we saw that Android's dynamic interaction sat around the level of old HarmonyOS. But with HarmonyOS's latest immersive light sensation, could it even glimpse Liquid Glass's taillights? From my experience, to be honest, there is still quite a ways to go. When you tap an option, how does the system clearly signal to you that you did tap that option? In prior OS, we would see options gray out to show they were selected. On Android, options often shrink, gray out, or yield no response at all. Such feedback is often blocked by your finger, so when you press and let go, you can barely tell if you even tapped it. iOS 16 uses Liquid Glass's compression plus glowing effects to unify interaction feedback. Across the system toggles, options, menus, search boxes, and so on, all sported. Tapping enlarges, selects, and glows to enhance interaction. Tapping to enlarge. At first, I too found that a bit odd. When a finger presses an option, it ought to shrink and sync, which seems more intuitive. But the liquid glass material feels more like a squishy toy. Those tactile droplets flatten and spread out when you press them, thus expanding to a size larger than one's finger. Plus, that glowing bouncy recoil. When you let go makes the selected state easy to spot at any time. When selected, dragging any component showcases that gel-like stretch and elasticity, which aligns perfectly with the feel of liquid glass. It also gives a fun, seamless feedback for the tap and slide to cancel action. If you press it, change your mind, and swipe back, you will see the text/icon gray out to show it is selected. Such super bouncy, silky smooth, real-time interaction feedback, plus that instant response when you swipe away then come back, is quite rare even on Android. From what I tried, only the Orange system's option menus have this ability, but with no clear feedback. iOS has long had this function, and once that layer of glass was added, the feedback grew much clearer, letting you know that option is still responsive. HarmonyOS currently boasts light effects that respond continuously to your touch, yet releasing your hand triggers no response. Only the password screen has this implemented. This is a feature I truly loved back when I used iOS. Sometimes, if you act too fast and tap an option but then wish to double check, you can press down, move your finger away, and tap back to trigger it. iOS third-party apps have this feature built in too. The feedback from the menu search box is similar too. Not only does the selected box move with your finger, but the entire glass panel shifts and deforms slightly to interact with it. These deformations and that fuzzy ball effect between adjoining glass panes, well, we actually saw those on the Dynamic Island years ago. When the Dynamic Island launched, within that system back then, it was scarily dynamic. Today's liquid glass interactions can be seen as a dynamic pod, but with materials and lighting added in. Once it spans the whole system, it forms a closed loop here, looking seamless and highly uniform. Regarding this deformed element, HarmonyOS lacks that liquid concept, but it does show up in the app's bottom bar. Note, only the bottom menu bar. Paired with ensuing light effects, it stretches and deforms. Tapping it stretches it toward that spot. Dragging it any which way, the whole thing stays put, while the glass gives a slight stretch and features a subtle bounce back. Compared to OS, HarmonyOS's stretch is slider and has clear limits. They look similar, but swipe it a couple of times and you will see OS's interaction feels much better. Plus, all system controls, big or small, behave consistently. We will detail this when we discuss overall performance. Another interaction feedback. For lighting, iOS and HarmonyOS have expanded button areas, unlike the Android camp's outer glow that lights up the surroundings. A worsted lighting, my take is that it gathers light at the spot where your finger touches, tracking your finger fully, but the light scope is limited to the option you have selected. Paired with HDR activation and greater deformation, liquid glass boasts a crystal clear, translucent feel. When you let go on a panel, the light radiates outward, with both the lighting and scaling showing a distinct follow-through, constantly confirming to you that your click was received. HDR effects usually kick in when screen brightness is high to further boost contrast in tapped areas. That luminescent, realistic look, it is improved by leaps and bounds. That see-through glass with text and icons glowing, man, it feels so different. And those colored buttons with the HDR glow, those colors just pop like they are on fire. HarmonyOS 6's light effect feedback is now in a somewhat jumbled, chaotic state post, absorbing iOS, lock screen, toolbox, password, control center, and calls. These system buttons are HarmonyOS's earliest and most classic ones. The whole button lights up with a white glow, much like what various Android versions do now, by overlaying a circular white area that also illuminates the outline highlights of nearby buttons. For lock screen's two scenes, the diffusion means highlights spill onto the background, whereas in control center, highlights show only within the button. But bumping up the diffusion range causes a noticeable color banding to persist, whether on the Mate 80 or the Pure X Max. The second effect is for the control center sliders and app menu options. The entire button's glow shifts to a soft, faintly diffused light. Adding a light follows finger trait, and you can even trigger it with two fingers at once. Like the first one, it uses a semi-transparent white circle for the halo, which also lights up the button's edge outline. Most amazing is that this light can flit between different option buttons. The effect looks quite nice, but on this you can swipe horizontally across. There is an issue with the light drifting. But based on this visual cue, should not it mean that wherever I swipe to and let go, that is where it responds? Same logic as the app's bottom bar, makes perfect sense, right? In reality, for HarmonyOS, both its lit top bars and menu bars offer swipe response feedback, but once you swipe away from the original button you tapped, releasing anywhere yields 0 response. That is so goofy. The feedback clashes totally with the actual response. Had it been the old laggy animations, I would not even bother saying this much. Least of all, I would not have held any expectations for it. Most importantly, since the app's bottom bar closely mimics iOS's swipe response, this makes the operational logic for feedback effects within that same interface highly inconsistent. The app's bottom menu bar uses that third type of light effect feedback, which matches iOS's responsive, clear glass. The menu brightens slightly, using a mask to swap icons. Once selected, tapping it makes it pop up swiftly. The glass shifts from its original spot, swinging and deforming at the end, all of which align with Liquid Glass's material traits. HarmonyOS here mimics iOS's swipe logic, using a strong light source that sticks to your finger, so when you select and swipe, that light source swiftly shifts position along with your tap. Kudos here. While this strong light source lacks HDR, it truly impacts the background by boosting its brightness. On colored backdrops, the edges, when lit, show soft shifts in color brightness. Across areas of differing brightness, the light gradually bleeds in and overexposes them in a very realistic, sequential order. That is a level of finesse no semi-transparent white overlay can even touch. That slight lag of the bright light when dragging creates a stickiness that feels just right. In third-party apps, you can see highlights in other colors used as theme colors. However, as you swipe, the color label for the selected menu item does not move along with it. If the color could snap to and follow wherever you slide, the expectations for the outcome of that action would feel much clearer. And none of those light effects we just talked about have HDR. So where did HarmonyOS's HDR effects go? For the first 2 glowing buttons you tap, the glow is quite faint. Plus, the lit up edge highlights while they look quite bright. But it just slaps on a plain white border with 0 color detail. It does not brighten based on the background color. And that border seems a bit crudely thick, do not you think? And for that app I just mentioned that truly brightens its background, the bottom bars lighting up looks stunning too, but still no HDR there. From what I have observed, the only UI interface that truly triggers HDR is when you open the Photos app in light mode to view a picture. For a split second, each component's highlight shines with HDR brightness. Well, I should say, it is just a bug. In versions beta tested before Immersive Light Sensation, tapping the highlight along the edge of buttons on the password screen yielded a clear HDR effect. This shows the system has that capability. We just do not know when it will be rolled out to other scenarios. So, having wrapped up our analysis of HarmonyOS's materials and its layered dark light effect, if we look back at that earliest Immersive Light Sense promo video, it is clear something is missing. In the December update, prior to the material enhancements, it luckily included more effects like particles and gaseous ones. For instance, on the password screen, tapping a control center button makes random glowing particles drift out each time. Tap it fast and you see those particles slowly fan out, a nice little after effect, I think. Right now, this only remains for the volume and brightness sliders in Control Center. When you slide them, particles drift along before swiping to clear items in Notification Center. Had those same drifting particles, too. And back then, on those 2 sliders, you will see not just particle backgrounds, but also ripples beneath your finger, mimicking water waves. I hyped this so much in my last write-up. It is a truly rare, innovative effect that markedly boosts the feel of all sorts of swipes. The background ripples slightly in response. As you swipe in any direction, particles drift away. The only slider left in the new control center. When you swipe fast, the particles just snap away at the end. Back then, those particle and water ripple effects also showed up when you dragged apps into large folders. Such a thoughtful standout effect, hoped it would spread to more scenarios, only to see it get axed. For those who tried prior versions after upgrading, you likely feel just as bummed out as I do. Another vaporization effect is fully retained, used for clearing notifications and app uninstalls, where the card instantly vaporizes to smoke. But from my use, I only like the app delete animation. For one, when you toss a notification card, it stops dead in its tracks the moment you let go and vaporizes right there. Just to showcase that vaporizing effect, the card feels laggy and unresponsive. I tossed it out, so it should drift onward in that same direction, out of inertia. Plus, those bright clear cards end up dissipating into gray smoke, which just looks plain bad. Like icons that blur and spread as they vaporize, their colors do not shift wildly. Plus, maybe to avoid making the animation too long, the whole notifier animates so fast that before it can fully disperse, it just snaps off at the end. The home screen icons start by slowly blurring and spreading out, much more seamless. As for dynamic effects, let us circle back to Liquid Glass's fluid, seamless nature, an effect neither HarmonyOS nor Android has even touched upon yet. Liquid glass is mostly used for floating menus, which shift in length and item count when switching between page layers. Liquid glass enables ultra-smooth, bouncy merging, splitting, stretching, morphing, any kind of shape-shifting, and content swaps, all with seamless transitions. Not just level switching buttons expanding menu buttons on folding pages too, all fling and morph much like fluid water droplets. Tap and swipe interactions involve bouncy, stretchy deformations too. This coherence is indeed a unique trait of the liquid glass material, echoing the fluid traits shown in the tap interactions we covered earlier, making the liquid glass flow feel quite natural and harmonious. The effects I just mentioned are merely the gold standard within the system, since it is not just about swapping out a material. To wield the full power of this material and its interactions, all menu bars must be rest-styled and made floating to achieve that software full-screen effect. I worry about HarmonyOS's global adaptation. Its system apps I have found fall into 3 categories. Type 1. Both app bars sport that floating material. Both ends use gradient blurs to expand the view, letting the apps display immerse fully. This is the most complete, full-powered form of adaptation. Type 2 also sports that material plus revamped button styles, but at its one end still uses frosted glass or a solid color to delineate it, so the menu area is only half immersed, looking disjointed. The third type comprises apps with no material design nor immersive adaptations whatsoever. In fact, most apps fall somewhere in between, in a state of incomplete adaptation. A few taps on the home screen adapt perfectly, but likely, secondary pages lack that immersive fit. Take the Theme Game Center app. It is quite thorough, covering the tops of various sub-pages. But then at the bottom, it is unadapted again. In the Photos app, the overall adaptation looks nice, but the Smart Photo album lacks that immersive feel. Wait, no. The main photo screen is not adapted either. Open Photos, even though the UI switched to a floating style, top and bottom still block out this huge frosted glass area. Even with all that adapted, apps like the App Store, which is pretty much a template, plus the more settings and share pages still are not adapted for immersion and materials to be deemed perfect. Immersive video apps must ditch these pop-up card UIs that lack immersion and lose their material properties at the top and bottom. So you might be asking, could it be that HarmonyOS just is not ready yet? But in reality, more than one third-party HarmonyOS mini app supports that same immersive top-tab design for cards. More on that in a bit. The whole system shows clear changes, but right now it feels quite disjointed. Issues also crop up with operations and feedback. As I said before, swipe gestures only work for the bottom menu bar. Plus, category tabs at the top of pages now support swipe to switch too. Same control type, but the calendar app only lets you tap to switch. Regarding the menu bar's tap feedback, we said the tap lighting can be shared among different options. But in reality, for some options, when you first open them, the nearby options just cannot seem to light it up, nor can you shift the light onto it. Yet, just tap and swipe this button once, and it activates and goes back to normal. Talk about voodoo magic. The button's highlight glow has different specs within apps too. Most normally, it is a faint ambient light plus a lit, pure white border. Some have no border, just a bottom light effect, and they might even pop up in the very same spot. Plus, I found that the highlight thicknesses along app edges vary, and that is everywhere. And what is even more chaotic is that app submenus need to adapt floating menus too. Most apps here seem quite uniform, but in fact, there is only the material and the floating bar. Tapping it yields zero feedback. Just when I thought that is how it was designed, the SkyMail app, which earlier had zero adaptations, now sports a perfect 100% coverage adaptation on its standalone SkyMap page. Other screens have zero coverage. Same for Mail, the home screen is not adapted yet within an email. This one lone spot shows tap and stretch feedback. The Game Center post got that pull effect too, but upon snapping back, there is no bounce and zero light effects. And then out of nowhere, they added unique lighting effects to the game cards up top. Man, that just made me laugh in sheer exasperation. This adaptation, do they just add features willy-nilly? It is so chaotic impossible to sum up in just a few words. You can tell higher-ups must have mandated adapting to this new UI. But with different app teams putting in varying degrees of effort for the home screen to come out looking even this minimally unified, I know that is already no easy feat. But for sub-pages, that is not guaranteed. After all, this is no small feat. To achieve iOS-level adoption, say, over 95% still demands 200% effort to iron out every last detail across the system. As for HarmonyOS' third-party app adaptation, I see that its official design guidelines still describe navigation bars as if it is 2025. Yet some small apps have already achieved that adaptation. Among them, QQ Music, Google Music, IT Home, and Coolapp, being big players, are most keen on app adaptation. Others are just niche apps for now, though their actual experience varies quite a bit. The most standard small app adaptations are ones like MarkX. These apps sport a bottom glow, a gradient, blur atop the menu bar, plus floating buttons. Even these third-party apps implement full-screen blur atop their pop-up menus, even more flawlessly than system apps do. Then there is the flashy, show-off type of adaptation. Take our old pal, the Bento app, for instance, besides the immersive top and bottom bars. Across the app, any card element boasts lighting traits. Press it lightly, and it glows, lighting up the edges of nearby elements. Any button also supports iOS-like drag interaction, even stretching more vastly than the system zone, an infinite range displacement effect that makes full use of all HarmonyOS's special effects. Plus, developer Dylan layered iOS styling atop HarmonyOS, making it super bouncy and fun. Plus, some apps, much like the system ones, just sport a bottom floating bar on their home screen, while the top part remains that big block of frosted glass. So what about big firms? Will they face this same issue? First off, kudos to Coolapp. Its home screen is much like iOS's, having adapted just the bottom menu bar. Plus, on the product and post pages, the HarmonyOS version also adapted the top buttons, their material and floating discussion buttons, such that the lighting effects are full and the drag feel is superb. For IT Home, HarmonyOS and iOS's adaptation scopes are similar, mainly the menu bars on the home and post pages. HarmonyOS supports auto-collapsing. iOS has more adaptations for the image pages and back buttons for some tools. But when a foldable device switches to landscape mode, which maps to tablet layout, that immersive light sensation vanishes and needs another separate tweak. Yet, the foldable version of RedNote, which got its own bespoke adaptation, enjoys a perk even iOS lacks. The homepage's bottom features an immersive gradient blur, plus the in-post menus for videos and images sport. That material design looks great, right? Swiping the homepage menu bar yields full-blown effects, though it looks the same. It is actually just a tap-only action. Swiping only tweaks animation and text opacity, switching screens. It just sits there. The home screen's bottom gradient blur, whether in dark or light mode, emits a white glow. And within posts, the posts and images lack tap feedback for videos. This drag effect feels so unfinished. Hopefully, they keep optimizing and adapting it. Also, with two other major music apps having even more complex pages, their performance is predictable. For QQ Music, both on HarmonyOS and iOS, only the bottom menu bar has been adapted. HarmonyOS also adapted the top search bar. But on HarmonyOS, tapping the player's bottom bar yields no light effects, and the UI transitions are just horrid. Whereas iOS sacrifices response time, so its experience is not great either. But iOS has that liquid glass theme on its playback page, plus control buttons with liquid glass. Its features are fully intact. But with Google Music, things flip again. iOS only adapted the player material at the bottom, with zero lighting effects on taps. What is worse, all those liquid glass-like materials on the play page are totally fake. They look identical to the Android skin. So where does that leave OS? Instead, HarmonyOS adapted the bottom menu bar and supports an immersive playback page up top. All materials are the full native system versions. Plus, the recent update supports various skins while retaining the lighting effects and textures, whereas both iOS and Android only offer one single skin and cannot even coexist with dark mode. Google Music's HarmonyOS adaptation is truly thoughtful, but what irks me is that for both these music apps, that bottom bar expand and hide animation is just way too linear. Comparing these big-name apps adapted for both iOS and HarmonyOS, even though iOS's Liquid Glass has been out for almost a year, that adaptation, to be honest, is not all that meticulous. For HarmonyOS, achieving this much means it is not lagging behind. And in terms of sheer breadth, iOS does have more third-party apps, at least ones fitted with that bottom menu bar. So that is the deal. Let us just hope those bloated, complex domestic apps can adapt more to these nice UI styles, to make the whole user experience feel more unified and comfy. Lastly, for Liquid Glass and Immersive Light sensation on the home screen, both firms have different use cases on iOS. The most striking example has to be the icons, which sport highlighted outlines on their cards. And HarmonyOS, right on the very day I was filming, brought back those icon outline highlights after they had vanished for months. I thought it would gone back to the shop to fix bugs, but nope, it just unified the highlight direction to top to bottom. The issue of white icons having totally invisible highlights is still there. iOS uses an algorithm to auto-darken some icons against white backgrounds to stress light and shadow. HarmonyOS just slaps them onto pure white so that white border blends right in, system icons included. Plus, only the cards lack highlights, lacking uniformity. Plus, this outline its highlights adhere to this icon set's design. Switching to the set, which is also of that light sensing style, shows that its built-in icons lack highlights too. I think it ought to switch alongside that immersive lighting mode. Auto-adapting to all icons makes more sense. After all, this effect just slaps on a ring of white dots with no special tweaks done. Nova's standout feature is its superb adaptive algorithm for third-party icons, which outlines the main subject's edges and adds highlights to boost its 3D feel. Even within China's ecosystem, chock full of dodgy icons, it still boasts around 60 to 70% coverage. HarmonyOS has only redrawn its system apps, those with the material design. For visual interaction, HarmonyOS only keeps drag lighting effects where the icon acts as a real-time light source, illuminating other icons and folders as you move it. Here, the highlight rim that brightens the icons is quite wide, making each icon seem three-dimensional. That lighting effect feels quite realistic. Older versions even had particle effects when placing icons into folders. Wonder if they will get to bring that back. HarmonyOS has rolled out major visual overhauls these past 6 months, which had me revising and rewriting the script countless times. Now, I can finally offer a full analysis across 3 facets: interactive material, dynamic interaction, and the overall experience. Tweaked it over and over, from a 5,000-word draft to a script over 10,000 words long. Just last year after my HarmonyOS piece, I swore I would never make such a long video again, but when I came across this cool experience, I felt it was worth taking you all deeper into it. Otherwise, it would be a waste. Your triple combo, hit it up for me now. I meant to focus on iOS, then dive into HarmonyOS, just doing a quick compare of some surface level. Similar effects, but wow, HarmonyOS went ALL in. This whole concept of immersive pages plus light-based interactions. Plus, just months after launch, third-party app adaptation has been quite earnest. Man, having your own ecosystem is just great. But that float glow layer algorithm that gives it away, plus the fact that few built-in apps can even serve as adaptation models. Adaptation is widely inconsistent. My once hailed particle and water ripple effects are now gutted with little left, making them hard to praise. Sits somewhere between decent and great. Plus, I held higher hopes for it, so after diving deep in, I felt a bit let down. OS-Liquid glass boasts strong long suits, a floating immersive state with quite complete system scene adaptation, featuring interactive elements and nimble feedback. Fluid, seamless, and cohesive. As for its strong points, they shine, so some of those bugs and flaws feel quite out of place, since it has been polished for a whole year now. In China, ecosystem adaptation saw little uptake, and within system nooks and crannies, buttons lack tap feedback too. Plus, the full-scale liquid glass rollout, only just days ago did iOS 27 truly support adjusting that glass's clarity. Basically, it tweaks the opacity of that blur layer I mentioned earlier, plus, the new version cranks up that blur layer's blurriness quite a lot. So when you want it clear, it looks hazy. When you do not, it reverts to frosted glass. Yet you cannot quite nail that subtle, soft blur effect of iOS 16. Linking back to our last Android lighting effects video, have you noticed that after all this talk in this one, the material itself is no longer the main point, but rather the floating menus, immersion, dynamic interaction, and adaptation enabled by it? iOS, no doubt, remains the gold standard. HarmonyOS's transparency is mostly immersive, but adaptation and interaction need work. A unified floating UI supporting button repositioning for HarmonyOS devices with that textured widget feel and showing more content on slightly shorter screens. These are all crucial. Kudos go to the material's adjustable settings, which cater to folks with different tastes while retaining key hover effects and light feedback cues. Meanwhile, Android is still grappling with materials, at best offering light effects in a few scenarios. For that soulful, immersive page, only iOS and Hyper are piloting it in their photo albums. Still a long way to go. So that is